Hello and welcome to the Wise Why. We're back after the Easter break, and this morning I am joined by Jonathan Reeves, who I met, funny enough, online, and we had a conversation about tax. Funny that, because he works in tax, but actually Jonathan's got a far more interesting story about his love of music. But as usual, the Wise Why is not about me, it is about my guest. So Jonathan, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Jonathan Reeves, and I run a firm called Tax Matters. And we're not just like every other accountancy firm. We specialize in tax. We like really talking about that because everyone is affected by tax, and hence why my wife chose the wonderful name Tax Matters all those years ago when I decided to go on my own, which was back in 2008. So yeah, it's all about tax, and that's why we're called Tax Matters.
So I know that a lot of people, including myself, I mean, thankfully, I'm not too bad at tax, but there is that moment where you've launched a business or your business is expanding and you're going from personal allowance to business allowance and corporation tax, and it all becomes a minefield of absolute overwhelm. I'm wondering if you could just give a little bit of advice to either a new business owner or somebody who is maybe struggling. What would you say to them about if somebody came into like me and came in and went, I don't know where I am, here's a box of receipts? What would you say?
Well, that's great. I mean, if you're going to earn, if I think it depends on how much you're going to earn or what you imagine you're going to earn. So let's say if you're going to earn £30,000 a year, that's great. A bag of receipts is not too bad. There's loads of like technical apps and stuff you can use, like decks where you can take pictures of receipts, and you can get QuickBooks and Zero are great platforms to use your bookkeeping. And if you can do that, that's great. If you can do it yourself, then I really recommend it. If you want a professional to do it, then remember that's going to cost you, and that's going to be an additional cost. And if you're earning £30,000, do you really want to be paying that to a professional person? Because that's your profits you're eroding away. So at that point, it may just be easier for you to have a bag of receipts and then hand them over. You might find that's cheaper because you haven't got a monthly subscription to deal with. But if you think you're going to earn more, there's lots of things you've got to start thinking about. Got to think about if you're going to hit the VAT limit. And that's recently gone up from 85,000 to £90,000. And that might seem like a big amount of money, but that's based on your last 12 months of trading, which is very different to your business accounts, which is based on your financial year. So if you have a financial year that ends 31st of March, then that's for your tax, and that just looks at that year, where your VAT moves every month. So you've got to keep an eye on what you're turning over. So if you're going to approach that 90,000 amount, then you need to think about being VAT registered. And I always say, if you're going to be VAT registered, why don't you just form the limited company at the same time? It's all done, it's all packaged into the same parcel, and you've got everything done. And by that time, if you're VAT registered, you need to be using one of these online portal softwares like Zero or QuickBooks. We always recommend Zero; it's our favourite tax matters. But yeah, I mean, running a limited company is so much better because you can draw down your profits in dividends, which are taxed more effectively than paying personal tax. But if you're paying tax as a sole trader, there have been some real good changes to national insurance in the minute. Class 2 is disappearing next year, and we've seen some cuts in the rate as well. So there are benefits there, and hopefully they're going to come through. We have seen dividend rates go up over the recent years, but everyone's different, and you need to take an approach. What doesn't work for some might work for others. But I think VAT is the big thing for business, which always catches them out, because either they decide they don't want to be VAT registered and therefore they need to keep an eye on keeping below that threshold, or they decide they want to break through it and then they need to really push hard to make it beneficial for them the other side. Yeah, that's my advice for a new business. Think about the VAT.
That was brilliant. That was so clear, so succinct, and just really calmly said. Can I just do that to you? Because I
Thank you.
know that there are points where I look at my tax accounts and I go, oh, now I use a software that's associated with my bank. I'm not going to say that online because, hey,
I know which one that is.
yeah, I'm not going to say. And it was recommended to me, and I went out networking, which I'm going to come on to in a minute, because we met on LinkedIn. And of course, that's networking. But I'm wondering, because obviously we're in the same area, and yet we've never met face to face.
No, we
So I'm
haven't. We're going to
wondering,
change that though soon, aren't we?
sorry?
We're going to change that soon, aren't we?
We are going to change that soon. So I'm just wondering about, I go out networking, there's always an accountant in the room. How does somebody choose one accountant? I don't know, this is a really loaded question, but why would somebody choose you over somebody else that's in the room? What would it be that they would drive to come to you?
Oh,
I know, first thing in the morning,
that's a
right?
really tough question because as networkers, we all use that phrase, don't we? That like, meet, and trust. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really true, isn't it? I mean, you do warm to people. If I think about people that I've carried on doing business with throughout my networking career, then it's always been based on that who you like. What does surprise me though, Kirsty, is you meet people at networking events 5, 6, 7 years ago that you never hear from, and suddenly they ping you a message and saying, "Can you help me?" And it's like, what's that about? How does you must have done something in the room that's left such an impression that they didn't need you, but like 6 or 7 years ago, or they need you now. You know,
Yeah.
what's that about? I mean, yeah,
And that,
there's loads of people. There's loads of people who do tax and accountancy, and I think you've got to find the right person that suits your business. And it's a little bit like when you start a game. So if you've just got a small lifestyle business, then you might really work well with just a person in the room who's themselves is a lifestyle bookkeeper type accountant. That might work really well for you. But if you've got more of a bigger business, then you're going to need a firm that looks at all different types of taxes. And then if you've just got a tax issue, then you need someone more like myself who can really help you with the personal tax, because that's really my passion is personal tax and how that affects people. Although businesses come into that quite a lot, it's everybody. Every single person you meet, as my friends always told me when we went networking, is every person in this room needs to speak to you because they've got a tax issue today, tomorrow, or somewhere in the future.
so can we touch a little bit on the difference of, because we've talked about business tax, can we talk a little bit about personal tax and where your strengths are in that? Because, as you said, everybody at some point, I can think about my neighbour a couple of houses away, well, actually a couple of streets away, suddenly received a tax bill because they'd made a mistake. And that tax bill was huge and it came out of nowhere. And the systems changed, so they can't go online. But this was before the system went online. Oh my goodness, and they would need you. So I'm just wondering if you touch a little bit about the complexities of personal tax, not obviously in depth, but a little bit of why you would help someone.
That is such a big question, that is. So I think one of the problems at the minute is people find it really difficult to talk to HMRC. Okay. You can call and it can take literally hours. And I know people on LinkedIn will post it takes 5 hours. But seriously, I mean, this week alone, I had one call that took an hour and 15 minutes for them to answer. Okay. And we have dedicated lines to do that. Now, they were also on about in the beginning of the month, they were on about closing the lines from April to September, and they quickly had to make a U-turn on that and said they weren't going to do that. So a lot of the problems, like people want to address their personal tax issues, but find it very difficult to talk to HMRC. And the issues arise from so many places. So a person who's on PAYE income may suddenly find that they go over the 100,000 threshold and they need to prepare a tax return to report that. Okay, their coding notice may change from their usual 125 code to a K code, and they suddenly start losing money in their pay packet every month. Now that could be a result of they've got a bonus all of a sudden. It may usually the bonuses go out in at Christmas time, so January they get a change of coding and suddenly realise they haven't got any pay, so people go into panic. Okay, um, other things that happen to people are pension contributions. They make pension contributions, which means they can get tax relief on that. They need to report that in their tax return so they can get that. They have underpayments, so they have tax liabilities from previous tax years that HMRC pick up, and then they put them in their coding notices. They send coding notices to clients. Clients don't generally understand what the coding notice means, and then they get a massive shock at the end of the month when suddenly their pay drops. Where else can we go? There are people who have trusts. Okay, now trusts are a big thing out there. There's more trusts around than you realize. And although the trust itself has to do a personal tax return, okay, most accountants don't know how to do those. They usually are left to tax advisors like myself to deal with. But the beneficiaries of the trusts also have to do tax returns if they receive income, because the beneficiary may be due a tax refund. A lot of beneficiaries of trusts are young children. Okay, so the parents don't want them to do tax returns. So then we would advise them for the trust not to distribute any income to the children. But what gets really complicated is when the trusts are distributing income to the beneficiaries, but the child may be 18 or 19, so they may be getting a couple of £1,000 from the trust, okay, which is tax refundable. But suddenly they go to university and they start getting bar jobs and part-time jobs, and then their code becomes distorted. So there's a lot of issues there. All these problems can blow up and affect people in a much bigger way than you appreciate. But also, it's worth mentioning, I think, is buy-to-let property at the minute, because lots of people have buy-to-let property and they own them personally. And interest relief on that was taken away a couple of years ago. So and now with mortgage rates going up, people are really feeling the sting, and they're not, some people feel that they're paying more tax and they're actually getting out in their pocket. So they're starting to sell the properties and they're subject to capital gains tax. And the capital gain tax rules changed in the last budget. So they went from 28% for higher rates to 24%. So this year we are imagining there's going to be a surge of people disposing of those properties. If you sell a buy-to-let property or any second property that you own, it has tax to pay on it, and you have to report and pay that to HMRC within 60 days. What else is there? Inheritance tax. People have inheritance tax planning issues. It's not just going to your solicitor and we distribute the proceeds of the will. There's planning to be done beforehand. How much money have you got? Where's it going to go? What's tax efficient? Yeah, a lot of tax stuff is about all the planning. It's just not doing a tax return is what we call compliance, and that's the stuff that you have to do. But the interesting stuff is how you save the tax, not how you avoid it. We're not trying to do anything illegal here. We're just trying to work with inside the rules. So you pay the right tax at the right time. And if it's a sideways step that we can point you in, then we'll point you that way just to save you the tax. Because let's face it, tax is not going to go down anytime soon. In fact, if you listen to a lot of commentators, it's going to go up. Is that too much?
Thank you. That was no, not at all. Because I think, when I said I was bringing on you to talk about tax, I think that, a couple of people reached out to me and said, "Oh, well, I want to know about this and I want to know about that." And it was like, well, I will do my best to try and cover as much as possible, but actually you probably need to set up a meeting with Jonathan. So thank you for giving an overarching view, because it is a complex subject. It is something that we all have to address. And it is also something that is the elephant in the room that we all want to brush under the carpet. So I really appreciate you for sharing that. Now I want to talk about your
I mean,
music.
people do brush it under the carpet all the time, and I'll just tell you a story about a lady who came to see me at the beginning of the year, and they had what's called a chargeable event certificate. So they had an insurance policy and they received a large amount of money from it, and they had ignored it completely. They do tax returns and they'd ignored it completely until last January she decided she needed to do something about it. So we had to go back and amend her 21 tax return. And on this Monday, just gone, she sent me the letter from HMRC confirming the penalties and the interest. She had £11,000 in interest to pay and two lots of £2,750 in penalties to pay, just for thinking I don't need to put that on my tax return. So you need to ask these questions. If you just don't leave it, it costs so much money. Yes, she got a nice lump sum of money from this insurance policy, but she's seen it eroded away by interest and penalties. It's a bit heartbreaking when you see things like that, really, because money doesn't come to any of us as easy as it should do, does it? So,
No,
yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate that. So if anyone is worrying, get in touch with Jonathan. So as I said, I want to talk about your music, because you've just come back from somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah, I've just come back from New York because I've been to see Paul Weller. I'm a huge Paul Weller fan, and we had to go to York to see him, which is like, I don't know, 250 miles or something, 4 hours in the car. We had to go that far because he's playing in Aylesbury, and I remember going to him to see him play at Aylesbury when he was on his downers, when the Star Council had just split up. He was out on his own. He didn't really have much material. He was just out there doing some of the old hits and stuff. And we went to see him in Aylesbury, and there was like 50 people in the room. No one wanted to go and see him then. And then there used to be this really famous club in Aylesbury called Friars, where all the big bands would go, and everyone's probably heard of Friars. And Friars, the Civic Centre in Aylesbury, I think it was 2010, something like that, was closing down because they built a new theatre. And I remember getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and being the second person in the queue to get tickets to see Paul Weller because he was playing the closing gig. And I even got interviewed for the local news, which was quite embarrassing at the time. But there we go. So I really wanted to go to Aylesbury because that meant I would have seen him at every time at Aylesbury, but I couldn't get tickets even though I tried really hard. And I was even trying on the way home yesterday to see if anyone had any last minute tickets to play at Aylesbury because I really want to go. So, because I would have been for the 3 times he's played solo at Aylesbury, I would have gone to every time. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I've always been into Paul Weller since I was 14, I think 13, 14, maybe. I can't remember now. You sort of forget. Yeah, 13. Yeah, got
That's
it.
amazing. So I live in a village that has a music festival, so I'm very lucky, and I'm find out today if I've got tickets, which is brilliant. And it's one of the things I love is going up there, and we've had some great bands. So apart from Paul Weller, who else inspires you musically or personally?
Oh, I've got such a vast catalogue of stuff that I like. I mean, I'm a vinyl junkie. I'm always out buying vinyl. I'm always looking for an excuse to go and meet clients or people, professional contacts in London, because it means I can have an hour or two in a record shop having a look. I mean, I love Northern soul, 70s stuff. I love everything from the 60s, all the stuff that you'd imagine that sort of like the mod stuff, like the Kinks, um, Small Faces, all those sort of bands. Yeah, and I did like Oasis in the 90s. They were a massive influence, and Blur and all those bands. I've enjoyed them, but it's not all just about all the stuff that you hear day in, day out. It's about discovering things that you have never heard before sometimes. Oh, yeah. I mean, we went to York, and obviously I found a record shop, and I was in there 1 minute, and I found this little record on a record label called. I went in there. I didn't have my reading glasses, and I'm still looking for records. So he goes, "You know what you're looking for?" I said, "No, I'm just looking for record labels now." So I found something on Sue Records, which is a record label from the 1960s by a guy called Billy Prophet. That's the only thing I could read was his name. And the guy says, "Do you want to listen to it?" And so I put it on the decks. I thought, yeah, this is absolutely brilliant. I know I want this record. And what's even better, because if you're a mod, you know this, right? It's about having what they call the promotional copy. If you've got the copy that came out before it was released, it just means so much in your record collection. Because being a mod's a bit like being I've been a magpie. You like collecting things. I mean, my wife's always going, more clothes, more books, more records. It's like you can't help it. It's just like, yeah. And I blame Paul Weller for that, because he's the one that got me into all this in the first place.
I love that. I do. So a band that changed my life actually, and it's not a band you would expect, was the Pixies. So I
Oh,
was
very good.
I know, and so my ex-husband loved the Pixies, and this is a really bad story, but we were, I shouldn't really share this, but anyway, we were in a Pixies concert. We weren't particularly getting on, and I remember, and my friend Tim could tell you what the song was. It's the one that's got the word devil in it, and I remember, this is really bad, and I'm so sorry to my ex-husband. I remember looking at him, turning sideways, and going, "Yeah, that's it." Which is really bad. It's a really bad story to actually share, is that the
That's a good
Pixies
story,
changed my life
really.
and I decided to leave my first marriage. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have shared that one.
But don't you think that's the thing about music? It
Yeah,
reminds you of so many things. And someone once said to me, music like drawers. The music that you grow up with, it's really stable at the bottom. You never lose that, and the stuff at the top is a bit more wobbly, and you're a bit in and out of it all the time. Yeah, so I think it is about all those things you grow up with, and in your 20s and stuff. They're the ones that really stick with you. And
yeah.
later, you sort of seem to drift a little bit more, because you're always looking for something new.
Yeah,
Always.
but then you hear Waterloo Sunset and you're driving down the motorway and you just go, "Oh yeah, I'm there. I'm just
Yeah.
there." There's something about it that makes you hear the Doors, and you. I'm
Yeah.
a little bit younger than that age group. For me, it was Madonna. It was unfortunately it was the Jacksons. It was all of that kind
I
of.
like Madonna too, by the way.
Well,
Yeah.
1982. I was 11 years old, something like that. I was 11. Madonna was huge, and obviously from Madonna I go to Pink. I adore Pink, Alanis Morissette, and those really power ballads that I just absolutely adore. And Madonna broke. I mean, I remember being 11, my granny saying, "What do you want?" And I won't say the album just because we're live on air. But I remember saying to my granny, I want this album. And my family are quite religious. So when my granny and I opened up my present, which was the big Madonna album, like my mum's face fell. I loved that song and I loved that whole album. And it really influenced my choices in music. So thank you for sharing your influences in your journey.
Brilliant.
I love it. Now I want to talk about who's inspired you along your way, because you didn't just launch a business, did you? You've gone on a journey to get to launching your business in 2008. I hope I got that right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it was my wife really who's really inspired me, because when we first met, she was always saying to me, you come from a family of shopkeepers, they've all worked for themselves. So my mum owned her own business, my brother owns his own business, my granddad owned his own business, and she was really surprised when we first met that I actually worked for somebody. And I think that goes back to, not that I always knew that I wanted to work for myself, and times before I met my wife, I sort of started that journey to do it, but always been a little bit unsure about doing it. But she really gave me the confidence to do it. And so I have to thank her always. And she chose the name for the business as well. And I remember telling my old boss, one of my old bosses, that I was setting up on my own. And he just said to me, "Oh, you're still going to sell your soul to the devil, are you?" And he was fantastic, because it's scary setting up on your own, because when you work in practice, you've got all this knowledge around you. So you know everything because you can just turn to someone and ask, and it's there. When you set up on your own, you don't necessarily know everything all the time. And he was really good, and he was called Sydney, and he's passed now, which is a real shame. But he said to me, just ring me up or come and see me and I'll help you. And I remember taking a client to see him one day because I was really stuck on something right at the beginning, and he sat down with them and he talked all the way through it and talked me through it, and it was absolutely fine. And that's what I needed at the time. And then I was just off and running. So I think it's having good people. Yeah, my wife, my old boss Sydney, were absolutely fantastic to me. And if I've forgotten
Brilliant.
anyone who's watching who thinks they made a big impression as well, I'm really sorry. But there is something else I need to say as well, because go back to networking. When I first went networking, obviously it's very scary. I met 3 guys at networking over a period of months who, back in 2008, 2009, who now are my closest and my dearest friends. And all the way through my journey and their journey, we have supported each other continually throughout, and we've seen all our businesses grow and all become successful. And that is the power of networking, just meeting some really good people. And
Yeah.
it's truth, isn't it, about you are the person you associate most with,
Yeah.
something like that. I can never get it right, but yeah.
No, I get you. We've had some lovely comments come in. Peter Mawson, I'm going to kill you on this one, Peter. No, I'm not. I love you to pieces. He said, not bad taste, Kirsty. A little questionable, but remain acceptable. Thank you, Peter. Well, let's have a call later. And then Hayley said, fascinating interview. We used to play white label records on a pirate radio years ago when I was a presenter. And was always excited
Pirate
to hear.
radio.
Yeah.
Love pirate radio. Yeah, that's got loads of memories for me as well.
And it was always exciting to hear the music before the release of popularity. Nice to meet you, Jonathan. Hayley, thank you for joining. And you two definitely
Yeah,
get
we
together.
need to talk, Hayley. We need to talk
So
for
this is,
hours.
I'm looking forward to our conversation, because I think the music is, I mean, mine, I studied musical theatre, but I'm not actually the biggest fan of musical theatre, but I love music. So, and my daughter doesn't like my singing, and I don't talk about this very often, but she always goes, "Mummy, stop it. Stop it. You don't sound like the pop stars." I'm like, no, because I'm trained in musical. And so, it's kind of like a different style of singing. And she's like, yeah, it's just not cool. I'm like, thanks. Thanks, darling. Thanks. So this is where the tables get turned. and you get to ask me a question. And of course, I don't know what it is. So fill your boots, throw something at me and see if I can answer it.
Okay, so if we found the key to the time machine and we could go back to your youth, okay, what thing would you bring back? What item would you bring back? And what thing would you change to make your business life much better, or to the point that where you really would like it to be today?
So this is a really interesting one. And please don't think I love my life. I love the journey I've been on. And, you know, mum and dad, thank you so much for the education you gave me. I really appreciate it. But, and this is a big but, I love archaeology. I love geology. I love rocks. I love the formation of the earth. And I didn't know this when I was 10 or 11. I didn't know that I would get obsessed about earth layers and how, yeah, a cirque can shape the whole world. And yeah, anyway, I wouldn't have known. So when I went to arts, I was a dancer, a actor, and absolutely I am 100% a performer. But if I could change one thing, I remember the day I was given, thank you, Mum, a piece of granite from Aberdeen. And if I'd known at that point how important that piece of granite would have been and how it would have changed my life if I had gone in a different direction. So what would I be doing now? It's really interesting. I would definitely be either an archaeologist or a geologist if my life had taken a different turn. I'm not saying I regret any of the decisions that I have made. I have a fantastic life, and I love the fact that I can stand here and say I've been a guest artist on TV, I've performed in musical theatre, I'm hosting a podcast because of the training that I have been given. My business is based on every single thing that I do. Stanislawski, all the training, everything, all the communication, all the marketing, everything in my life has brought me to where I am today. But if I could have a parallel universe rather than changing it, I'd have a geology business because I love geology. So that's an interesting thing that nobody ever knew or knows. So
No, that
thank you
is
for that
interesting though.
question.
That is interesting though, isn't it? You know, what would you have done differently? I think it
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
it is.
But
It's what about,
what item would you have brought back from your childhood as well? Because I
so
keep
it
seeing
would
these
be
posts of. Sorry,
It would no, it would be the granite. It would
really?
definitely,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really gutted I lost that piece of granite. And it to this day, that one piece of granite that was all the way through my childhood, I have a piece now that I found halfway up a mountain, which I normally say, don't take anything away. So when you go out somewhere and you go for a walk, leave everything as it is and don't take anything away, except this was shaped like a fox. So I asked the planet, the mountain, the ex volcano, and said, please, may I take this with me? My husband was like, what are you doing? I'm feeling guilty about taking this rock. I really am. But I kind of, it's shaped like
Is
a
it still,
fox's face.
does it sit on your desk as a paperweight now?
No, it sits in my bedroom along with my other ones. So I have, if you saw, if you saw my husband, I drive my husband nuts. So I love rocks. As I said, I love rocks. So one of my favorite pieces is a piece of tektite. So
Right.
that's volcanic glass that's come from the moon. So some people like, yeah, I know. Some people like them because they believe they've got healing properties, and I'm totally up with that. You know, fill your boots. But I love the layers, so a bit of calcite, a bit of amethyst. But I love how it's formed. So yes, if I could go back, I'd go and get that piece of granite because it's missing from my collection. So yes, you can laugh.
I'm not gonna lie, I think that's really good. I think that's really interesting, isn't it? You know, I was expecting you're gonna say something like, "Go back and get me Cabbage Patch doll" or something like that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
anyone who knows me would know that. So I had, like many girls, I had dolls, and I had a little crib, and I loved it. But I never wanted. It's really funny because it wasn't an influence in my life, and I never wanted to change the dolls' nappies or anything. I was much more into how is this rock formed, which is a bit weird. We've had another comment
Well,
from Haley saying, "Amazing question."
I
So
think it's an
another,
interesting question, isn't it? Because I think although we're all very happy with what we do, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing it, we'd be doing something else. There are things that happened when we're growing up that could have changed things for us. And it's
yeah.
like, I mean, I never meant to do tax. Tax was an absolute accident for me. I mean, I don't know if we've got time, but if I tell you
Yeah, we
that
have got
story.
time. Let's touch on this. We'll finish on this, but yes, let's talk about how it was an accident for you.
So I was working in an engineer's office at the time, and this lady came to see my boss, and I asked her who she was and who she worked for, and she said she worked for the Inland Revenue. And I remember saying to her, "That's not a job I'd ever want. Imagine working for the Inland Revenue. You can't have any friends at all, can you?" I remember saying this to her. And then I decided that I was going to go to college and do my A levels and go to university and train to be a solicitor. And in the time when I went to do that, I got a part-time job at not part-time. They used to call them casual contracts, working for the county court because I thought it'd be a good experience. The contract only lasts 6 months, and the way the civil service used to work then, they would let you go even though you could do the job. They would let you go and they give it to somebody else, which is just like weird, isn't it? I mean, you wouldn't do that in a real business, wouldn't do that. And I was sitting in college this one evening doing A-level law, and I sat next to this guy that I'd never sat next to before, and he just asked me out of the blue what I did for a living, and I said, "Oh, I've been working for county court, and I was looking for a new job because my contract's coming to an end." And he said, "Why don't you come and work with me?" And I said, "Where do you work?" And he goes, "I work for the collector of taxes, which is now the Inland Revenue, HMRC." And I said, "Well, I don't fancy that." I gave him my phone number, and the next morning they rang me up and said, "Would you come for an interview?" So I went for an interview, and basically there was no interview. It was, "Here's the Official Secrets Act, and can you start tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock?" And that was it. And that's where my tax career started. The funny thing is, I never sat next to that lad ever again at college. Okay, not because of any reason, just didn't. And the office was so big, I think I only ever spoke to him once in the whole 4 years that I worked for HMRC following that. So it was just an absolute fluke that happened, and that's how I ended up with a career
So
in tax.
some people would say fluke, some people would say destiny. I met my husband, who's amazing, by accident, by fluke, because it was the one day that I was going to be in this one city, one town, and he happened to be there. And then somehow we met, and now we're married. So is it destiny? Is it fate? Who knows?
I
But
don't
I love
know.
that.
It's just weird these things happen, though, isn't
Yeah,
it? I mean, they're just really odd. They're not like things that you do if you went to that city all the time, or if I'd sat next to that guy all the time, you could have sort of understand why those things happen because you'd have built a relationship with the place. But they're just one-offs,
yeah. But
and they
those
change your
one-offs,
life massively,
they
don't they?
they do, they do.
Massively.
Those one-offs are important. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Put your links in so people can get in touch, because anyone who's got a tax problem, absolutely get in touch with
Yeah,
Jonathan. He will
I'll
help
talk
you.
to you.
And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Kirsty. Much appreciated.